So how do you get to Area 51? Well, start by heading north out of Las Vegas. You drive for about 2 hours through the desert, then make a right onto the extraterrestrial highway. And pretty soon, you'll end up here. This is Rachel, Nevada. It's about a 2-hour drive north of Las Vegas, and it's basically the last stop before you get to Area 51. In fact, you can see they're well into the spirit here. Can you point sort of generally in which direction it is?
It's back right over the mountain here, a ways.
So if we just drove that way for a while, we would eventually get stopped?
You would get stopped. Security usually keeps people there to make sure you don't come in.
You're going to come up 1 mile. Okay. You're going to go back 8 miles to the back gate and take your pictures. Do not go past any of the signs that say no trespassing, government, because it's a $600 to $5,000 fine.
And with that, we were off down this unmarked dirt road in search of the back gate. So about 8.5 miles on this dirt road, and then we should get to the back gate. And then we'll hope that we don't get arrested. Although it might get kind of cool if we got arrested. Okay, probably not. It's pretty clear where the road ends and the base begins. I'm trying to approach in a non-threatening manner. Photography of this area is prohibited. So the road ends here, and this is about as far as you can go if you're trying to get to Area 51. They say this is the back gate, and this is where we're going to have to stop. No alien or even human sightings, but it's pretty clear they don't want us passing through. And I'm guessing they gathered plenty of intelligence on us as we drove down this seemingly empty dirt road. For more stories about Area 51, visit cnet.com. I'm Molly Wood. Area 51 was, and maybe still is, the place where top secret technology was developed. For spy plane buffs especially, it's a fascinating place to be.
When you look at the drones that fight the war on terror, you can see the lineage goes directly back to the early spy platforms at Area 51. The U-2 was developed there, the A-12 Oxcart was developed there.
The U-2 spy plane was the major reason this secret test zone was established. It's the most famous spy plane in history. It flies at 70,000 feet, 14 miles above the Earth's surface. It flew over the Soviet Union during the Cold War, over Cuba during the missile crisis, and descendants of the first U-2 fly over Iraq and Afghanistan today. The A-12 Oxcart stealth plane also began life as a CIA project at Area 51.
Our primary function was the radar cross-section and trying to diminish it as small as possible, make the aircraft totally impervious to Russian radar. That was the name of the game.
It wasn't just invisible to radar. The A-12 flew at Mach 3 at altitudes above 90,000 feet. It was an incredibly technologically advanced plane and built completely in secret. It would eventually become the Air Force's famous SR-71 Blackbird spy plane, still one of the fastest airplanes on Earth.
For the first time in jet history, it is possible to inspect 400 square miles with a single cartographic photograph.
Some of the technology they used at Area 51 was far ahead of its time, and these guys knew it.
We had the first computer this side. Every day I was bringing up and taking back roughly 8-inch square plates of diodes and transistors while we were still using vacuum tubes.
We were all a group of specialists. We were the top in our field, and all of us had different fields. In my particular group, we were cadre out there. There's 23 of us, and we all had different specialties. Mine was Soviet radar. I knew Soviet radar. I knew ECM, the electronic countermeasures, and electronic countermeasures, which was the anti-jamming, and radar. So, but we had you had draftsmen, you had telemetry people, all sorts of people that were on the team. And we didn't necessarily know what each other was doing once we got out there, because we didn't have a need to know.
And they know they laid the groundwork for the technology that's still in use today. Most of it still totally top secret.
That whole space race, satellite wars, has moved itself forward, and a number of my sources who were there back in the day in the 1960s now believe that we might be developing stealthy satellites so that other countries don't know when we're spying on them.
They got a camera the size of my iPod or iPad or whatever, where ours weighed 700 to 800 pounds. With a credit card and an iPhone, you can order up a satellite photo of even better resolution than what we spent billions of dollars on to develop, and years to develop a spy plane to do.
For more stories about Area 51, visit cnet.com. I'm Molly Wood. Area 51 wouldn't be Area 51 unless there was controversy and conspiracy. And Annie Jacobson's new book, Area 51, delivers both. She cites an anonymous source who told her a surprising story about the Roswell UFO and its connection to the mysterious Nevada military base.
Well, you know, what I write in the book has made some people uncomfortable because it's not reflective of what they want to believe the government does or did at Area 51. And in the end of my book, I reveal what someone told me, an engineer who was a source for me. What the source told me was that a flying disc really did crash in New Mexico. It was taken to Wright-Patterson, and then it did wind up at Area 51, hence the name Area 51. It went there in 1951. And that he was one of 5 engineers who reverse engineered that craft. It did not come from Mars, it came from Russia.
And Joseph Stalin apparently engineered this craft, sent it as part of a disinformation and fear campaign.
The craft is believed to have been built by 2 former Third Reich airplane designers named Walter and Reimar Horten. And they had the blueprints on this craft, and apparently Stalin got a hold of it and sent this craft as a means of a hoax a la the War of the Worlds.
And her source told her there were little green men inside the aircraft, but not the kind you think.
And this is the information that came to me from the source, who I absolutely believe, I stand by. I've spoken with him since the book has been published. And what he said was that the child-size aviators had been the byproduct of this horrific human experimentation program by Stalin in collaboration with the doctor from Auschwitz, Dr. Joseph Mengele. Eventually, my source told me we chose to do the same thing. And that upsets a lot of people, this idea that the United States government could have experimented on humans.
The allegations have shocked readers and some of the veterans of Area 51.
I can't conceive of it. That was not the atmosphere. We weren't that desperate at that time. I can't even picture Stalin being that desperate. But then again, people, they do crazy things sometimes in the interest of, you know, I just can't picture it. Because I would then be forced to say, I don't want to be part of it.
We don't know. We can't, you know, it's just a personal opinion. Everybody's got their own opinion about certain things.
And for me, it's completely plausible because I looked at the entire landscape of Area 51 and that need to know and the compartmentalization of secrets. And I believe that something like this, a rogue program, could have happened.
Area 51, says Annie Jacobson, is a story of incredible feats of technology, but also a story about a place far out in the Nevada desert with hardly any oversight and hardly any rules.
We had no bosses, you might say. We were top of our field, and there wasn't anyone superior to us. And we reported to no one except the customer.
I rather see it as a clear progression of what can happen, because one of the themes that I write about in the book is, using the Lord Acton quote, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Some of the men in the book show great moral courage no matter what, and I write about that. These are America's cold warriors. But what I also write about in the book is a number of men who experience a downfall when power sort of overwhelms them and you have the old archetype of hubris taking over and they push things too far and there's very serious repercussions. Remember that Area 51 was set up to push military, science and technology faster and further than any other nation. That is what we did. And the Rogue program is an extension of pushing science over the edge into black science or wicked science.
Now, since we interviewed Annie Jacobson, T.D. Barnes, and Jim Friedman for this piece, controversy about these allegations has continued to grow. The Roadrunners, the group of Area 51 veterans that meet to talk about their experiences there, now say they feel blindsided by the story, and they've emailed us to try to discredit the tale. What would you hope would come out of this?
Well, I would hope that people would read the whole book and be able to make that judgment for themselves at the end, because everyone gets to have an opinion about whether or not they believe the veracity of my source, as I do. And if it is even remotely possible what he said happened, then there are questions to ask about black operations at Area 51.
One thing is clear, and probably always will be, very few people will ever know the whole truth about Area 51.